I'm Willard Snyder. I am Chair Emeritus of the Tripoli Bank. I've been with the bank for 50 years until I retired, and spent the first 8 years in this particular bank, the home bank that the directors built. The committee met in 1909 for the first time and elected board of directors. They found a lot. The board said go ahead and build a building. And within a couple of months, we opened our doors on March the 1st, 1910. There were 12 directors elected when the bank first started, and many of them have offspring who are still directors with the bank. Sally Snyder is the daughter of Carl Snyder. He was one of the early directors, and his father was Nathan. In fact, he chaired the building committee that built this thing. We were standing on the original floor. That is still here, and inside the teller area is a cork floor made out of cork tile, and that is also the original floor. All of this woodwork is quarter sawn oak. Quarter sawn oak is oak where the trunk of the tree is cut in half, and then those halves are cut in half again. And that's how you get quarters. And the quarter sawn oak gives you this beautiful grain and all of the embellishment that is used to do the wood. This used to be brass, but it's tarnished over the years. And the marble is the original marble that was on the cages when we opened our doors. Around the whole building, there are many original items that still pertain to the bank. This is the original vault door, but it was not installed until 1920. They used the concrete vault that we poured when the building was poured, and they had a large safe inside to lock things up. But by 10 years of use, they had more and more business, so they had this door installed. When they installed it, they put heavy beams underneath this floor to support this, because that is a 9-inch thick door, and the frame around the door weighs a ton, so the total door and the frame do weigh 9 tons. As we move in, there is a steel plating over the entire wall. It's 3/8-inch steel plating. See how it's screwed fast? And that's to give additional protection. This is the ventilator. This goes all the way through this door, so you can see how thick it is. And the ventilator fits into the wheel that we turn there and open up and pull that in. It still works, still pulls the air in case you're locked in, and if the door was closed, we would not suffocate in a small amount of air. When this particular vault was finished in 1920, we put in a modern alarm system. The alarm system ran on batteries, so that if the robbers cut your electric wires, the alarm would still go off. And I used to wind up these batteries, so this gave us additional assurance that there was at least an alarm working regardless of whether they cut the electricity or not. This book was written by Elmer Kistler. He was called Squire Kistler. The secretary at these particular meetings during this time of the year of the bank, it records what happened at the meeting that day, and we met weekly then, every week on a Tuesday morning. And this is Squire Kistler's penmanship. It's very, very legible. And Elmer didn't drive. Many times he walked from Linville to the bank, and he would be picked up by fellow directors who would be going by at the time and brought him along to the meeting. This is Clayton Worley, who was the cashier and ran the bank during the Depression era. I knew him. I was hired when he was still working here, and he tells me about many of the foreclosures they had to do. They just were glad if people stayed in their banks and told them to stay in and pay what interest they could. On the other side of Clayton is Bill Betts, who was the cashier who hired me and was running the bank at that time. And the gal in the middle is LaRue Hausman. She's a long-time employee here. She was working here in 1960 when I started working here. And she taught me, I was hired as a teller, and after half a year, I was promoted to assistant cashier. This particular phone here is the one that took care of all the people living in the New Tripoli area. So if customers wanted to use the phone and they were from New Tripoli, we gave them the New Tripoli phone. And if they were in Tempton, we gave them the Tempton phone. They did the very same thing. This one also rings. And I have the original phone book from that time and has numbers from most of the state of Pennsylvania from different places. It is the original desk that we still use today. You could sit at either side, and there are always two people sitting here. LaRue Hausman was generally in that side, and Carl Liebert, who was assistant cashier, was on this side. And they both worked for a long time at the bank. This machine was used for the checking department. When customers in the beginning would bring their savings passbooks in, we would handwrite in the book their deposits, their withdrawals. You would put their statements in here and post the checks against them and deposits on them. Of course, right behind me is an OSHA approved van. We were using this when we moved out of here in 1968, and it still cools and operates. They built things to last in those days. We had 3 telewindows that we used, but then we had a need for another one. So we cut a hole in here, and usually on a Friday evening when we're really busy, we opened the 4th telewindow. We were 6 employees when I was hired. 6 of us would put our cash in here and bring it out, and we balanced more often than not. When we went to the new bank in 1968, we went to a proof machine that kept track of your cash and had more trouble balancing, I think, than we did here in the old thing. Each station had an alarm button that you could push with your foot without them seeing you, and that rang the alarm. When I was hired, Bill Betts said to me, I know that you shoot a lot, but you buy a couple of boxes of shells, the bank will pay for them, and you practice, because I used to carry this with me to auctions when we had farm sales, in case someone wanted to rob me when I was coming home or going there. We have a book which has all of these original New Tripoli National Bank shares. This share happened to be loose, torn from the book, so we framed this, and this has been shown around the area. This was down the McCungy Bank. This was Charles Leibensberger, who bought these 3 shares, and he was a stockholder, and his family are still stockholders. I remember Bill telling me that this $20 National Bank certificate is an original and was never circulated. These came in 20 to a sheet, and then you had the cashier sign them, the president of the bank or the vice president of the bank sign them, and cut them up and issued them to people. These are very collectible. Like this one does have the New Tripoli National Bank name. This one has 20 has the Kusan National Bank. Here's the Mockshunk Trust Bank, the Email National Bank, Leesport Bank, the Hazleton National Bank, another one of the Kusan Bank, and Neff's. Neff's National Bank is another bank that is still in existence. Now, this little stuff is really interesting. That's script currency. During the Civil War, they were issued because copper was very scarce. So rather than printing coins and silver, they printed script currency. That's a 10-cent piece. This is a 10-cent piece, and that is too. These are older bills signed by various treasurers, and these with the gold seal were back when we were on the gold standard. They were backed by gold in the Fort Knox that we kept in there. These are redeemable in silver because we had off the gold standard, we went on the silver. Now we've gone off the silver standard. Customers could redeem them for silver bars. And if they brought in $10,000 worth, we counted it, gave them a receipt, and shipped it down to Philadelphia. And a few weeks later, silver bullion was shipped back to us to give to our customer. This is a stapler. You fold a booklet, and you can do small booklets. This will hammer a heavy stapler, and that's why you have all this leverage to go through 20 or 30 sheets of paper. This is one of the older savings type banks. We would issue these to customers, and then they would take them for their children and put money in them and stick dollar bills in there, roll them up and stick your coins in here. And this one just came to the bank. It's almost in perfect condition. I was with the bank only 6 months when I was made assistant cashier at that time. And Bill Betts had a serious heart attack. And his doctor said he cannot do any business at all anymore. So at 6 months experience, I was asked to run the bank. I used to meet with the board of directors here every week, talk about loans, new loans, talk about loan problems, and all those things that we talk about at board meeting. And there were 12 directors who sat around. That's why these are 12 of the original chairs. And it was a full boardroom. And it's interesting, as I do tours, I get to some granddaughters who said they can remember sitting on their grandfather's lap at board meeting. Now, around the walls are older calendars with shots from the area that I do a calendar each year for the bank, research the history of it, and print it up and put it on the back underneath the pad. And the one right behind the door is the 100th anniversary one that was made for 2010. And there are all kinds of other pictures that have ties to the area. It was a unique experience when 1968 came and we went over into the new bank across the street, which had a proof machine and which kept us in balance and had air conditioning. And of course, sometimes we don't learn from history. This originally had a flat roof. And in 1936, it was leaking so badly, we replaced the hip roof with a peaked roof in the same way with our branch across the street. We originally were a flat roof and eventually put a peaked roof on that because of having leaking problem. We have grown from this into the first office, which was built in New Tripoli. We then went to Colosville and built another large branch, and then we moved to Macungie, and it's been 5 years since we were in Macungie. The cashier used to run the bank, and then in the 70s we changed to electing a bank president and electing chairman of the board. John is the seventh CEO. Dave Hunsaker is the sixth one, and he's going to exceed me by a number of years with the bank because I hired him when he was a young fellow. So it's been a range of experiences to go through all of these different branches, and it's been an interesting experience, and I certainly hope you have gleaned some information on the history of this bank, and enjoyed talking about it. Thank you.